Hello everyone, Panzer J back with a new video. This is going to be my second video on one of the games from Xeno games. This is Europe at War. This came out in 1993. This isn't a game that I've played yet, so I can't really get into different strategies and tactics, but just kind of an overview of the game. Look at the map, everything's set up to the initial start of the game. This is kind of like a companion to Xeno Games Pacific at War, which was my last video. You can check that out. And again, Xeno kind of blazed a trail for games that have come out since then. Axis and Allies and Historical Board Gaming's Global War series. Xeno really started introducing some more complexity in these grand strategy World War II games. Different countries became playable, some different units. The introduction of some special units for each country, like SS units for Germany or Marines for the United States and whatnot. Again, it's not at the level of games that we see out now, but definitely a step up for when these came out. This one was in 93, and Pacific at War, I believe, was maybe around 98. Definitely no later than around 2001. So let's take a look at the map. Now, as the title suggests, Europe at War, this is only covering the European theater. So it's going to cover Europe and North Africa, and just a little bit of the Middle East. As you can see over on the left side of the map, there is no United States. So there is no possibility of an invasion of the United States if the Axis were to get that far. The United States is just going to be represented by these boxes up here. So units that are coming over from America start in this turn box here, move to a second turn box, and then end up on the map here in the Atlantic. So everything the U.S., you got to build a bunch of ships and transports and whatnot and bring all that stuff over. But America isn't actually represented on the map. If we take a look at Russia, only the part of European Russia is representative. So it goes, here's Moscow up here. So we just go a couple of spaces behind Moscow, and that's it. So anything like Vladivostok or anything in the Soviet Far East, that's not represented on this map. We come down into the Middle East. Again, you got a little bit, you got here southern Russia, the Caucasus represented, Turkey, a little bit of Iran and Iraq. And then down over here into Egypt, Libya, and the French North Africa over here. You got Spain fully represented. And just the rest of continental Europe up north, covering part of Norway and Sweden and Finland. So that's the map. What I like about the map is, again, even though overall it covers a less of an area than, let's say, the Global War, which includes the entire, both the European and Pacific. This obviously is just concentrating on Europe, but just if you break Europe down itself in comparison to other games, it looks like there's more territories. There definitely is more territories per country in this than in the European side of the global maps. So like Germany, you've got 3, 6, 9. It looks like you got a dozen territories in Germany. France has got another 10 maybe. We look at Poland. You got 4 territories in Poland, along with the Baltic countries, and then a little bit of Poland right here as well. Russia itself, I mean, look at all the territories you got in Russia. So you've got 1, 2, 3. You're 4 steps away from Moscow. I don't know exactly offhand how many Russian territories are in the global games, but there's definitely more territories broken down for Russia here, which I think makes things more interesting. It's going to take you probably longer to get to Moscow, more of a slogging match to get through all these territories, get into Russia, a little bit more chance to like maneuver your pieces around and whatnot. So I definitely like the fact that there's more spaces per country in this game than there is on the European side of the global games. So I think that's really cool. And then over here, you've got the income tracker, and then you've got some tech, a tech chart here as well. So a couple other additions on the map. As far as the units, again, it's very much like Pacific at War. You've got less different units in this game than you have in the global games. And again, none of the sculpts, they're not different by country. So the sculpts, they're going to be the same sculpts, just color-coded. As you can see from this map, I've got a bunch of different colored units on here, which I'll talk about what they represent here in a second. But you've got the same basic units as you do in the Xeno games Pacific at War. For the Navy, you've got destroyers, which again are called escorts, transports, which are called merchants, battleships, cruiser or carriers, and subs. So just those 5 different sea units. The carriers only take 1 fighter per, unlike 2 in the global war games. There's no cruisers in this game. The destroyers, which again they refer to them as escorts, they serve the same function as destroyers in the other games. And same thing with the merchants, which are transports. For air units, you've just got bombers and fighters. And for ground units, you've got the infantry, armor, and artillery / anti-aircraft. And again, if you take a look over here at this German artillery sculpt, it's actually an anti-aircraft gun, but it serves as artillery in this game. And again, the only difference between countries is just going to be the color. So the sculpts are the same. So, I mean, obviously you're not getting quite the authenticity, quite the flavor that you would in the global games in terms of the pieces. That's one thing I love about, especially historical board games, Global War. They continue to put out new units, new pieces, and they're sculpted to that specific country. So you won't just have like a sculpt that's, say, a heavy tank and it's generic for each country. For the Germans, it's actually a Tiger tank, or the Russians, it's a KV-2. The Americans, it's a Pershing, heavy tank, or the British, it's a Churchill, and so on. So that's definitely a step up from these games, but they still serve the purpose as far as the amount of units you have available and the function that they serve. So as far as the pieces, now not all these come with the game. The game itself consists of 6 playable countries. The British, the United States, which these units over here are off the table, and that is part of the setup. In the U.S. setup chart, it says off the board. So these are basically being represented as being in the United States, ready to roll once the United States enters the conflict. France is number 3, and Russia is the 4th playable country for the Allies. And then for the Axis, you have Germany and you have Italy. So 6 playable countries, and then there are a bunch of neutrals. So the game itself will come with the pieces to play the 6 playable nations. And then there's a separate add-on of pieces that are in additional colors that aren't necessarily set down in the rules that you use this specific color for this specific country, but I just tried to color coordinate things as much as possible. So I also have the addition with the additional playing pieces. So over here in Spain, for Spain and Portugal, I'm using these dark red maroon pieces. Up north, we've got green, and that's representing both Norway and Sweden. In Poland, we've got orange for the Poles. The black down here in the Balkans represents the Axis minor powers, Romania, Hungary, and Bulgaria. And then we've got this, I'm not sure if it's quite gold, it's like maybe a lighter gold color. It might be kind of difficult to see the difference there, but that represents Turkey. And then we've got a bunch of white pieces. We've got some in the Middle East, Iraq and Iran, Greece, up here in Yugoslavia, Switzerland, Belgium and the Netherlands, Ireland. So they're all white, and they're more neutral countries. So you really, to this setup that I've got, you've got about 4 different colors representing the neutral countries, and that was, like I said, again, that's not from the rules setup. It was just more based on the units I had available, what I had for colors and stuff. Like I said, I tried to coordinate things as much as possible. I definitely didn't want multiple colors representing the same country. And even in the same region, if there were multiple countries, like over here in Spain with Spain and Portugal, I tried to color coordinate them together if I could. So this is just basically, your setup might look different. Again, this is more just my preference in the units and the colors that I had available. So those aren't playable countries, although the Axis minor powers down here, Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania, they are part of Italy actually in this game. So they move and attack and defend on the Italian turn. And then up here in Finland, those are actually German gray, and that was part of the setup. So Finland is in this game not necessarily part of Germany, but they're represented by the German units, and then they move and attack with the German turn. Now, unlike Pacific at War, there's no factory pieces. So as you can see, if we zoom in a little bit here, like take Germany, there's a bunch of factory silhouettes and territories. Now, again, I haven't played this game yet, so I'm not sure exactly. I read the rules a while ago, so I got to freshen up with that. But I'm pretty sure that what those represent is the territories you're able to place new units on. So if we take a look at, let's say, Leipzig, for example, and it has the factory silhouette, and then it has a value of 3. So I'm assuming, without knowing for sure, that you can obviously place units there to a maximum of 3 because of the dollar value of Leipzig. And it's like that throughout not just Germany, but the countries in general. So you got Frankfurt here with another factory silhouette with a 6, Berlin, Stettin. So it looks like actually almost all the German territories have that factory symbol. So Germany can really place stuff pretty much wherever. But other countries are the same as well. If you look at France real quick here, you see the black factory silhouette on almost all the French territories. So I think what you're just limited to is to whatever the dollar value is of that specific territory as far as being able to put stuff down. So that's kind of cool. That's definitely different than other games. In other games, you have to have, you have major, minor factories. And depending, obviously, the minor factories, you're able to put less down. But usually you also have those factories in far fewer territories than you're going to have, it looks like, in this game. I mean, like I said, in Germany, you're talking a dozen territories, and it looks like you can put stuff down in each of the territory. So that's definitely something different. I like that. I think that's kind of cool. You're able to kind of shuffle units around a little bit and place them, whether you're trying to go east, you're trying to go west. You don't have to worry about having the factories down. You can just, set some units down there each turn. So I think that's kind of cool. So that's definitely a different aspect to the game. Just kind of some thoughts about the game in general if we're looking at the map. Kind of like with Pacific at War, I think that the Axis would actually have a difficult time in this game. Without having played it, I can't say that for sure, but if you just kind of look at the map, I mean, Germany, and this is representative of September 39 when the war broke out. I mean, most of Germany's units are on the East Front here, ready for the invasion of Poland, which took place on September 1st, 39. And then in the West here, they just have basically a few units along the Siegfried line as kind of a blocking force in case the French came in, which, as we all know, they didn't. They kind of just sat back and let their Polish allies get swallowed up by the Wehrmacht. So that's definitely represented well here. As far as the German Navy goes, I don't think there's really that much going on for U-boats. I think the U-boats are kind of unrepresented. You got a couple here outside of Hamburg, this port here, and then you've got a couple of subs and a couple of destroyers or escorts in this game up here in this North Atlantic convoy box, and that's it. So I think the German U-boat fleet is kind of underrepresented. And especially if you're looking at what the Allies got. I mean, up here at Scapa Flow, outside of Glasgow, the British got 3 battleships and 3 escorts. So not to mention what they've got down here. Another escort, a carrier, a couple of escorts over here. So the British, and that's pretty accurate. I'm not saying it's not representative of how things were in World War II, especially at the beginning of the conflict, but I think the Germans would definitely have their work cut out for them there. And then the French, if you look at what they've got going on, they again have a strong navy. They got a couple of battleships down here in the Med, another battleship up here outside of Brest. So the Germans are definitely at a big-time disadvantage in the Atlantic. And even if you're looking at their Italian allies in the Med, you know, the British got some ships up here outside Gibraltar. Then they got a bunch of ships over here outside of Cairo. And the Italian Navy isn't quite as strongly represented in other games. You just got a single battleship and some destroyers, and then another escort and a destroyer down here. But not a lot. And then even if we look at, say, ground forces, the Germans obviously are in position to swallow up Poland pretty quickly. I mean, they got more than enough there. But then they're going to have to transition quickly to the west. And I mean, the French have quite a bit of forces there. The British don't have a lot of ground units in England, but they've got the transports to bring them over if they want. And Italy isn't much of a factor. They got some decent units here in Tripoli. But again, the cool thing about this map is look at all the spaces it's going to take to get to Cairo. Or if you're the British going from Cairo to Tripoli, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces in between. Definitely, I think, makes for, you got to maybe think about maybe a little bit of a different strategy, or definitely puts a different spin on this compared to other games where you're like at the doorstep of your opponent is seemingly quicker because of less territorial spaces. And then again, if we look at Russia, now Russia doesn't have a lot on the board to begin, and obviously Germany and Russia are at peace with each other at the start of this game, and they don't have a lot. But just like in real life, the Russians are going to be able to trade a lot of this space, a lot of this territory for time. I mean, that's going to take a lot. I mean, if you're the Germans and you even swallow up Poland on turn 1, I mean, you've then got to go through the rest of East Poland here, the Baltic states, and then you've got a bunch of Russian territories before you really start threatening Moscow. So it's probably going to take quite a bit of resources on the Germans' part to take out Russia. Maybe a little bit more difficult in this game, at least, than my experiences in the global war games. And then you got the United States ready to come in. They start out, again, this is a lot more than what the United States has in some of the other games. I mean, usually the U.S. has like maybe an infantry or two, a plane, and a couple of ships. I mean, this is, you know, like 5 men, a couple of tanks, a bomber, a fighter, and a bunch of ships, including 2 battleships. And obviously in this game, the United States doesn't have to put any of their resources in the Pacific because this is just a European conflict. So the U.S. is going to be dumping everything against Germany. So I think it's going to take maybe a little bit of luck and some very good play on the Axis part to win this game. Who knows? I could be wrong. Hopefully we'll get a chance to play this fairly soon, so we can find out if that is accurate or not. Also with the game, you've got the attacker-defender chart to put your units, depending on which ones are involved in the battle. And again, you've got air cap and tac air. So that's, again, something that was incorporated in like some of the historical board gaming and Axis and Allies games. Kind of borrowed that. And then each country comes with its own setup chart. And if you look here, Germany starts income $39 plus Finland's $3, and they have cash at hand $50. So they have a little bit more in cash than they actually have worth of territories to start, which is, again, typical. And each country, some of their units attack and defend better and cost more or less, depending. So like Germany, if we take a look at their inventory, they cost $5. You compare that to Italy, they only cost $4. Italian armor, $8. German armor, $7. One thing that's kind of weird is German subs cost $9. Italians, for instance, only cost $8. So I'm not sure exactly why that is. And they attack and defend at the same. They're both 3, so that doesn't seem, very accurate. I wonder why German subs, which were obviously a lot more plentiful during the war than Italian subs, I'm not sure why the Italian subs would cost less, but so that's kind of cool. It adds a little bit of flavor for each country, so you don't just simply have, a generic, all units attack and defend and cost the same amount for each country. So, and then again, if we look, here's the British setup chart and the United States. And again, things cost differently. The United States armor, for instance, costs $6. The British costs $8. So that's pretty cool. And then finally, let's see, what else do we got here? Then we've got the France and Russia's setup charts. And then last but not least, you've got the minor powers. So that is a look at Xeno Games Europe at War. Again, hopefully I'll get a chance to play this fairly soon. It seems interesting. I think the Axis are the more challenging side to play. I think they have their work cut out for them right from the start, but we'll see, maybe not. So we'll be back with another video, hopefully of some of the gameplay from your Xeno Games Europe at War. Take care, and we'll see you next time.